old house settled around me like a shroud. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind through the eaves felt amplified, charged with an unseen energy. My parents had bought it cheap, a sprawling Victorian with more character than sense, nestled on a street that seemed to hum with a low, persistent unease. We'd been here for 6 months, and already the house felt less like a home and more like a waiting room for something terrible. It started subtly. Doors left ajar would swing shut with a soft click when no one was near. Objects would migrate from their designated spots, turning up in odd corners or balanced precariously on the edge of furniture. My mother dismissed it as the house settling, the quirks of an old building. My father, ever practical, blamed drafts and forgetfulness. But I knew. I felt it. A prickling sensation on my skin. A chill that had nothing to do with the thermostat. A persistent, gnawing dread that clung to me like damp clothing. The basement was the epicenter. It was a sprawling, unfinished space, choked with cobwebs and the musty scent of damp earth. The single bare bulb overhead cast long, dancing shadows that played tricks on the eyes. It was down there that the whispers began. Faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, they'd coalesce into distinct words, chillingly intimate, calling my name. Thomas, they'd hiss, from the darkness behind the ancient furnace, from beneath the cracked concrete floor. Came the music. Old, tinny melodies that would drift up from the basement at odd hours, crackling as if from a long-forgotten radio. Sometimes it was a jaunty waltz, other times a mournful lullaby. It would play for a few minutes, then abruptly cut off, leaving an unnerving silence in its wake. My parents heard it too, but they attributed it to faulty wiring in the old house, a phantom radio signal. They didn't feel the cold that radiated from the basement, the palpable sense of being watched. One night, the activity escalated. I was in my room, trying to sleep, when I heard a frantic thumping from downstairs. It sounded like something heavy being dragged across the floor, followed by a series of violent crashes. I crept out of bed, my heart hammering against my ribs, and tiptoed to the top of the basement stairs. The light was on, a sickly yellow glow that barely pushed back the oppressive darkness. And then I saw it. The old grandfather clock, which had stood dormant in the corner of the basement for months, was ticking. Loudly, its pendulum swung with a frantic, erratic rhythm, and the hands spun wildly, blurring into a single silver streak. As I watched, paralyzed with fear, the clock's wooden door flew open with a splintering crack, and something dark and fluid spilled out onto the concrete floor. It writhed and pulsed, a living shadow, before seeping into the cracks, leaving no trace. The music started then, a discordant, jarring symphony that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house. I stumbled backward, a choked scream escaping my lips, and fled to my parents' room. They eventually called a priest. He walked through the house, muttering prayers and sprinkling holy water. He spent a long time in the basement, the air growing visibly colder with each passing moment. When he emerged, his face was ashen. He spoke of ancient pacts, of a darkness that had taken root, feeding on despair. He told us we had to leave. We left that week, abandoning most of our belongings, just as a family across the street did a few years later, after their child started talking to an invisible friend who lived in the walls. We never looked back, but the echoes of that house, the whispers and the music, still haunt my dreams. Welcome to the Aqeela Files. You thought you were safe. You were wrong. The darkness in that house, it's everywhere, and it's listening. Can you hear it? Tap, 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 right behind you. Don't turn around.